It's been a clusterfuck, y'all. It's been a clusterfuck. I've been to therapy twice this week. The first monthly check-in was beautiful. I made a lot of growth, and my therapist was like, Poppy, she's like, you're having some great breakthrough. She's like, I'm seeing you. She's like, you're doing great. Then I made the dumb decision to open up to my dad. You know, he's been my best friend. Everyone says I'm his mini him, you know, like we're practically enmeshed. And that's been my ride or die. You know, I love him more than anything. And that conversation resulted in an emergency therapy session of me just crying my heart out for however long, like an hour. And what I realized is this daddy's girl who's always loved her dad, who's always seen him as his best friend. You know, that's not what I was. What I've been doing my whole entire life is a trauma response and trying to protect a version of my dad that never really existed. I projected this fantasy, which has therefore colored my whole entire life, specifically my love life. And I'm learning how to grieve the relationship with my dad, because I went with him with all this trauma and I'm like, hey dad, like, do you remember this in childhood? Can we talk about it? And I have a very brutally honest father, which I thought I loved. But whenever you're coming from a place of vulnerability, brutal honesty isn't what you need. And some really hurtful things were said, and I just crumbled under that pressure. And this whole fantasy I thought I had to grieve and be like, I didn't have a soft father. He never even apologized for what was said, right? You know, we talked to my mom about it and was like, yeah, I said some really hurtful things to Poppy. I mean, at least that's what my mom said. And she's like, yeah, just don't talk about him. Talk with him about stuff like that, you know? She's like, just talk to him about, you know, surface level stuff. Talk about him philosophy, you know, what y'all get along at. Don't talk to him about your emotions. And I'm like, I'll never have a soft dad where I can go up and hug him. I can't have a dad where I can show my emotions, be myself. And yeah, that's where I'm at. My whole entire life, you know, like I said, I was a mini him. I see his trauma, you know, whenever people are like, he's a mean, angry guy, he's kind of like the guy in Up, you know, I don't see an angry, bitter guy. I see a guy with like thousands of back wounds or backstabs, you know, and I'm always like, I have to protect him because no one's there for him. But I'm starting to realize he put himself there, and it's not my responsibility to take that on. You know, being a daddy's girl isn't fixing everyone, right? It's loving myself and putting myself first. I mean, that's not what a daddy's girl is, but that's what I'm learning to become and formulate a healthy relationship with my father. But I'm realizing a healthy relationship with my father might look like not having a relationship with him at all. At least not a sincere, authentic, vulnerable one. And yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of where I'm at right now. It's a short video. You know, I have like this whole thing written out. And I mean, yeah, I can talk about my thing with men and how my nervous system is drawn to potential and it ignores reality and it always wants to fix things, because that's what I did with my parents' marriage, because they didn't want to break up, because why do that to your daughter? So, you know, stick it together, tough it out, have a shitty marriage, show your daughter what love doesn't look like. And that just forced me to hyper romanticize it and want it and cling on to it so tightly. And then whenever it's falling apart, like in therapy, I had this image. I do EDMR, that's the only therapy I'll ever do. But cognitive behavioral therapy, EDMR, is amazing. So one of the images I got during my EDMR session when processing my family trauma was a foundation, and it was cracked. And I was a seed growing in the cracks. And as I began to grow, the foundation would shake, it would get worse and worse. And what I would do is I would shrivel up, stay small, so the foundation would remain intact. And that vision kind of fucked me up, because like that's the reality. I've always sold myself short in relationships. It's like I can't grow, I gotta stay small, because if I grow, I'm gonna make people uncomfortable, people are gonna fall apart. And this is literally a perfect song. Like the house is falling apart, and I'm starting to detach from it's my fault, and more that I'm illuminating things and calling things into truth and alignment by being myself. That the foundation was already broken, but I can grow and be true to myself. And all I'm doing is calling people to live up to a higher standard by living for myself. And things that are crumbling are things that were going to crumble anyways. And I mean, my family's at a place now where I'm not really worried at them, but that's the trauma response I've been living in. And it's been rough, you know, going from a dad that you've absolutely loved to having to grieve him while still being able to interact with him, and just having to be surface level and cut off myself to see his pain and let him suffer. It's rough, y'all, and it's been eating me alive. But I can't stay stuck in that loop, because I realize like that's what's going on in my relationship with men. Like my guy friend Jomri, he's like, puppy, he's like, I've been a shitty friend to you. And I'm like, oh, Jomri, it's fine. I'm like, you have this issue, this issue, this issue. And he's like, Poppy, you gotta stop tolerating bullshit from men. He's like, you have your own stuff you've gone through. Like, and he's like, you don't have to be the bigger person all the time. It's like, you don't have to make excuses for me. It's like, stop it. And that loop is starting to hit me, especially with my dad, and as I'm doing more grief work. And yeah, this house is falling apart. And I don't really know why I'm filming this video. I just need to film. I need to get this off my chest. You know, it's a catchy title, Daddy's Girl with Daddy Issues. But for real, I don't know. It's been rough, and that's where I'm at. And that's kind of the lesson I'm learning right now, is to let go of the fantasy and continue being true to myself, even if that makes people uncomfortable. So yeah, today's lesson. Sorry, I'm like so dead. Yeah.